Crowd scene.
Hi, so you're about to listen to part 2 of our conversation with the team behind the innovative Sensel Morph, which Wired magazine said may be the future of input devices, and Fast Company called their invention a keyboard on steroids. Speaking to co-founders Ilya Rosenberg and Aaron Zarraga in last episode's part 1, Pete and I learned about how they developed the concept and how they started their business. But in this episode, the focus is on what happened next, their incredibly successful crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter. Their goal was $60,000, but they left that number in the dust, raising $442,000. So how did Ilya, Aaron, and the team do it? Well, let's find out now in part 2 of Crowd Scene's talk with the creators of the Sensel Morph.
Crowd scene. Gonna kick it with Pete and Mike. Crowd scene. Interviews behind the hype. Crowd scene.
And did you need to convince anyone on your team that crowdfunding was a good idea, or have to convince each other?
Not having done it before, we were definitely very cautious going into it, and we talked to a lot of other people that had done crowdfunding campaigns to just learn as much as we could about the process, about the do's and don'ts, and also just what it takes to actually ship a product, because I think the shipping part is the most important part of the crowdfunding campaign.
I'm curious, what was the timeline between, so Ilya, you getting together with Aaron and sharing the idea and working that up, and then reaching to the point where you thought actually crowdfunding is the next step. I'm curious about that timeline, but also then the timeline between you deciding let's do crowdfunding and then going live with the campaign.
Basically, the first kind of 6 months of the company, we were really focused on just fine-tuning the technology. And kind of the next 6 months after that, so this was kind of like the first year of Sensel, we spent trying to figure out what the product was going to be and just talking to a lot of users and building our early prototypes. So we had we decided we wanted to do our initial sensors were very small, so we decided we wanted to do to make a larger pad that was really good for two-handed interaction. We came upon the idea of the overlays and kind of this very versatile device just by talking to a lot of users. And so that was kind of like the first year, is just refining the technology and the concept for the device. And then from there, we spent about 6 months preparing for the crowdfunding campaign. And that time was spent kind of refining the device itself, getting a really nice enclosure made, getting really nice overlays made, refining the software and the firmware, and also just figuring out how we were going to explain the concept to our users, how we're going to shoot the video and all of that.
And were you both able to focus on this full time, or were you trying to juggle other pursuits?
Yeah, we were both working on it full time.
And during this whole planning stage, what was the best advice that you got in terms of how to effectively crowdfund something?
I think one of the most important things that we realized was that you really need to reach out to people long before you actually launch the crowdfunding campaign. And you want to get people excited about it. You want to get feedback. That was one of the most important things. I think we fortunately had the opportunity to participate in StartX, which is like a Stanford affiliated accelerator program. And it was very interesting because we got in kind of the summer of 2014, about 6 months into starting Sensel. And we kind of decided, we're pretty sure we want to do a Kickstarter to launch our technology and this product that we're thinking about. And we were kind of the opinion, hey, let's just throw our project up on Kickstarter. People are going to see it and be really excited, and we're going to do really well. But through talking to a bunch of other StartX companies that had done crowdfunding campaigns and had success, we learned really quickly that usually that isn't good enough. You need to do a lot of work up front in order to make sure that when you go live, that there's someone there, that there's people there, ready to kind of look at the product, that are excited about kind of buying it on day one. And so through all those conversations with people that have done Kickstarters, we realized that we were just completely not ready for the Kickstarter. And so we decided to push it back and then really focus on, one, we wanted to make the hardware much more further. We wanted to progress the hardware and get it a lot further along, because one of the things we didn't want to do, we didn't want to have to like show renderings of, oh, this is what it's going to look like. We wanted to make sure that we could build it, right? Because a lot of campaigns fail on that front. So we made sure that we could build it. We talked to a lot of people up front and got feedback. Like we talked to artists, like Ilya mentioned, and had a lot of great realizations through that. Talked to musicians, we talked to anyone we could find, basically. And then through that, we started building an early community of people that were excited about the product.
How did you build your mailing list?
Through just meeting people, and then also we attended a couple of conferences. Like we went, one of the big ones for us before we launched was SIGGRAPH. And SIGGRAPH is a computer graphics conference and interaction. And so we went, and there's just a ton of designers and artists that were there, and we showed them to a lot of different people. And I think that was a lot of our backers that backed us on day one were people that we saw at that conference, because they're the ones that saw that the product was real, and that had the opportunity to try it out and see kind of how good the performance was. And what was great is actually those backers, or those people that we met, kind of supported us even outside of the Kickstarter. As you saw, we got a good number of press around the launch. And it was really interesting, because even in the comment section in random articles, we would see people say, "Oh, I don't believe this. This is impossible to build. This is vaporware." And then you would see people say, "Oh, I actually saw this at SIGGRAPH. This is real. This is like very exciting." And so those people that we had met were supporting us not only through the Kickstarter, but also through other channels as well.
Well, you mentioned the press that you got, like Wired Magazine, Fast Company, etc. How did you get their attention?
Yeah, so we actually engaged a PR firm to help us with that. They're like this awesome firm called Asterisk, based in New York, and they helped us set up meetings with different news outlets. We had I think 2 full days where we were just meeting with a bunch of people, showing demos, and a lot of the reporters we met with got really excited about it, and so that led to a lot of those articles that came out on day one. So
you're sharing demos. Did you also have a press pack? Did you put together?
Yeah, we had a press pack, but as Aaron mentioned, a lot of in our device, with our device, you really kind of have to feel it and experience it to kind of understand what it can do. So I think most of the excitement that we generated and most of the articles that came out on day one were through actual meetings with reporters and having them play with it and see that it's real.
So would you say that kind of paid PR up front, I'm sure it wasn't cheap, but would you say that was a good investment for you guys?
Yeah, it was a fantastic investment for us. You can obviously do all of that yourself just through networking and emailing, different people, but it's difficult. It's very time consuming. So it was really helpful for us to, have somebody that already had those connections to have them go out and help us set up the meetings and things like that.
If people are curious to find out more about Asterisk, is it asterisk.com? How can people find out more about them?
It's astrsk.com.
Great.
Okay, they could Google it, Mike. They could probably just look it up on the internet, I reckon.
Oh, wait, no. astrskpr.com. I forgot there's a
there. So, guys, your campaign goal was $60,000. Where did that number come from?
We wanted to pick a goal that we thought we could hit. Obviously, we, the technology is so, I think, so game changing that we didn't want, to chance like a failed Kickstarter and then have people think that because there's a chance that you never know when you crowdfund, right? Like there's a chance that it could fail, and there's always a chance it can fail, no matter how much prep you do, and that's why it's kind of terrifying hitting that go button, because you never know how all this prep work is going to go when you go live. For us, we wanted to set a goal that we thought we could get, because we didn't want people to think that the technology was a failure, or that we were not real, and that oftentimes for a company can do more harm than good. We've talked to a lot of companies that that prematurely launched Kickstarters, and they failed. And then as a company, it's very difficult to figure out the next step. Do you try to raise money so that you can make it to another crowdfunding launch? But then raising money is very difficult as well. So we wanted to pick a goal that we thought we could hit. We didn't realize that we would hit it as fast as we did. We hit the 60K goal in 3 hours, which was insanity. And we were completely shocked by that. I mean, we thought it was going to take, weeks or, much longer than that to hit the goal. And so, the amount of press that we got really helped accelerate the excitement around the technology and the ability to hit the goal.
Well, you mentioned that before you went live, that it felt there was an element of being terrified. I mean, did it feel like high stakes? Yeah,
it was extremely high. I mean, we had so kind of what we had done is a lot of it was our own money to begin with. We did raise like a seed round. We raised some external capital just to help us make sure that the company would survive in case things went bad with the Kickstarter. And then even if things go well, a lot of hardware companies kind of don't realize that the crowdfunding campaign is, a lot of people think that raising money through Kickstarter is enough to build a company that can build a product. A lot of times the Kickstarter funds are just enough to build the product. And so that's why you see a lot of hardware companies, they do a Kickstarter, they don't have any kind of external funding at all. And then they say, oh, we ran out of money, so we can't deliver. Yeah. And so for us, our reputations are on the line, right? So we did raise some external funds before just to make sure that we could keep the lights on through the campaign. But there's still this like moment of just terror where you're like, okay, we talked to all these press people, but are all the articles going to be good? Like, what if they all secretly wrote, bad articles about it or had bad experiences? What if, we have this list of people that said they were interested, but like, do we actually know that they're going to go and buy the product when we email them? So, you do as much prep as you can, and then you hope for the best and hit go.
And did the press come out on that day on launch?
Yeah, the Asterisk helped us with that, arrange kind of like an embargo. So we talked to a lot of press several weeks before the launch, and then basically had an embargo and said, hey, these articles can't come out before this day. And so having the articles come out that all on the first day, I think was huge, because you looked like, no matter where you were, if you were looking at some tech blog or something somewhere, there was kind of something about the Morph that day, and so that was huge to our numbers. It was really exciting.
Over those hours, you said 3 hours of raising that $60,000. So are you getting alerts in your inbox? What is that sensation like?
It's hard to remember it sometimes because we were all so sleep deprived. I think we stayed up, all night the night before. I think the whole team maybe got 2 hours of sleep if you added all of our sleep up together. And so we were so sleep deprived, and because we also had articles coming out like on a specific date. So we told all our email list that it was coming out, and so we couldn't just not do it, right? So we just had to push through. And so I remember hitting the go button, and then we kind of looked at each other and we're like, "Is the campaign live?" And we're kind of like, "I think so." And so we looked, and then I remember we got our like first backer came in, and we were just so ecstatic, and then basically for the whole rest of the day we just kept hitting, actually the whole rest of the month probably, we just kept hitting refresh on the Kickstarter, just to see what the number was, and it was a ridiculously exciting day for us.
Was there ever a moment before the campaign that you thought this is not going to make it?
I thought that a lot. I tried not to tell. I kept that mostly internal, though. I tried not to tell the rest of the team that I had, all these thoughts and fears. And I'm sure, Ilya, you probably had the same as well. But
Ilya was supremely confident the whole time, right?
No, I mean, you never know, right? You can't be overconfident because, it's all about, it's all about telling the story, really. It's like the campaign, the page, the description of the product, the video. It's all about that story. And like, you never know if that story is going to come across to people and if it's going to, whether it's going to resonate. I mean, I think we were cutting video still to like just a few days before the launch. We were still like trying to get the video to make sense. And we were trying to get, the campaign page and all the graphics ready, all the descriptions. I mean, there's so much that goes into like explaining what you're doing. And like Aaron was saying, we hit go and we were like, we're not even sure what's up there anymore. We've just been working for like a week straight with barely any sleep. It was only like several days later after the campaign was live and we like went back over and we looked at the video, we looked at everything. It was like, oh, this is pretty good. We pulled it together somehow.
The video is very well made, and I thought it was very smart to have others pitch your project in the video. You don't always see that in crowdfunding campaigns. I mean, was that the initial idea?
Yeah, that was definitely the core idea for the video. We wanted to have, real people like doing art or doing music professionally, real, makers. We wanted to have them actually, we didn't want to have paid actors trying to sell it. So there was kind of a lot that went into that up front to, both find those people and spending time with them, getting them comfortable with the product, getting them, actually like the artist that we show there, like he actually created all this awesome art with our device, which was really great. But there was a process, getting to that point, because, just making sure that it worked with their workflow, worked with the software that they're using.
Was raising so much money. I mean, you're going for 60 grand and you blew past that almost by 400 grand. It was much more than you intended. Was that a problem of any kind? Do you ever feel like, oh, we raised too much?
We definitely didn't want to get, too much funding because, we're building this device in volume for the first time. And, with hardware, the more you're building, the more, if there's any issue, it gets multiplied by the number of units that you're building. Mm-hmm. But the number that we got, it's about 2,000 units that we're going to be building. It's actually a pretty good number for us in that, in that kind of volume, it's still, it's kind of a great volume because you can learn a lot from building 2,000 units. Mm-hmm. But then if there's any kind of like minor issue, it's not, you're not like having to go back and repair, millions of units.
So on that final day of the campaign, how did you guys celebrate?
I think we just went home and slept.
That was a long campaign, right? You chose to do it for 45 days.
Yeah. Which
is longer than I believe Kickstarter recommends. What made you choose the long campaign?
Yeah. And actually, in retrospect, we probably should have done a 30-day campaign. But we wanted to give it more time because we expected we'd have to do a lot of, we planned to do a lot of work throughout the campaign to continue to travel and to show it to people and to get our numbers up. So we wanted to have a slightly longer campaign. Mm-hmm. The way things turned out is we had so much success early on through the campaign. Yeah. That we actually spent most of the rest of the campaign. The focus ended up being more, responding to the users' concerns. We shot a couple more videos to answer some of the questions that came up. So a lot of it was more spent just interacting with backers.
And not sleeping. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious about how personal the project is for each of you. What does the Sensel Morph and its success mean to you?
For me, it's I've been working to kind of achieve this vision of better input, more responsive input, and more versatile input for many years now. Since it's almost been 10 years now since I kind of started working on some of these ideas during my PhD. So it means a lot to me to see that people really care about this and want to see it, turn into a product.
And Aaron, is that true for you?
Yeah, for me, I'm just so excited because for so long I was, similar to Ilya, I've kind of just seen how input is just right. The state of input right now is just, to be honest, just like not good enough in terms of like, where we could be. And so I think that the Morph is a huge step forward for interaction. And I was just so ecstatic that that others could see the vision of what we were trying to do at Sensel, and enough to the point where they would actually back us with their own money. And so for me, it was just a great validation point, and kind of it's just great knowing that you have backers that are with you and they want to support you. And so it's just so much more motivating now. I was motivated before just by the pure idea of being able to change the way that we interact with computers in the digital world. But now there's even this much greater motivation of like, okay, people are on board. Like now let's deliver. And so it's I
can understand how the tools allow people to be more intuitive or faster at making things. I guess I'm just curious as to how much the art itself, can change as a result. I mean, maybe this is not an answerable question.
Yeah, I think like the artists that we've talked to, they've all come back and said that when they're using the Morph to paint, it's like they feel like they're kind of like in a state of flow, and they're using a brush and it's doing kind of like responding in the way that they want. They don't have to keep going back and tweaking sliders and adjusting, like all these different parameters to get the different strokes they want. So the feedback has been yes, like it's allowing them to be more like in the moment and more creative, and getting effects with the brush that they would, similar effects that they would if they were drawing on paper or on canvas. Versus drawing on a computer where a lot of times you're trying to fake those effects and make it look like paper or canvas, but it's really hard to do when you're using just a stylus to try to emulate a brush.
So guys, you have some kind of collaboration with Frog Design going on, is that right?
Yes, so we work with them as part of, they have a program called Venture Design.
Yeah. Actually, just for the benefit of people who haven't heard of Frog Design, maybe if you could just explain the significance. It's a big design firm who've...
Pete was pretty wowed, actually, just as a little... Pete was like, oh my God, it's Frog Design. They're involved. Amazing.
Well, famously, they worked with Steve Jobs, right, to design some early Apple stuff back in the day.
Yes.
That's how a lot of people have heard of them, like me.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they're kind of a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. They're one of the top, design firms in the world. We got introduced to them through our mentor at Start.s, and they really saw the vision of what we're trying to do because they're creative people, they're designers, and they wanted to support the vision. And so we work with them as part of a program they have set up where they're set up to work with startups that don't have a lot of money, and so they helped us with a lot of the pre-campaign work, and a lot of the video work was done, through a collaboration with Frog. So,
yeah. It's funny because like Ilya and I would make videos ourselves, and we would try to like make our brand look kind of consumerish. But what we realized pretty early on, because we wanted to build a consumer brand, right? Like we wanted the Morph to appeal to the mass market and consumers. And what we realized early on is that we're technical people, and we can do tech really well. We can build things and we can do all the engineering work. But in terms of like design work and looking, having that connection to the consumers and mass market, like we realized that we probably needed to bring in external help to help us make sure that the message was tailored to consumers, the design of the video, and that the logo and everything like looked good and was like kind of friendly to the average person. So,
are you guys on track to deliver your rewards to your backers?
Yeah, so we're planning to ship in June, and we're working very diligently towards meeting those deadlines, and it's going really well. So.
And what's next after that? After you've shipped the 2,000 units from Kickstarter, what's your priority after that?
We're working on refining the technology and like thinking about what's the next version of the device going to look like, and what channels are we going to sell it through, and all of that. And we're also thinking about potential partnerships where the technology could be integrated into other devices. So there's kind of a lot of different things we're considering post shipping, but definitely the focus right now is to just make sure to get it out there on time.
You guys ran a great campaign. What advice do you have for anyone out there who want to start their own campaign? Can you give us your tips for crowdfunding success?
Yeah, I mean, definitely don't just throw it up there. Take the time to really think through the product, the messaging, the PR, and the marketing is a very big aspect as well. And so,
it's that pre-campaign that's pretty key for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I think.
Are there things that you did that you felt like that was not a useful use of your time, or that was something that you would avoid next time?
I think a shorter campaign probably would have been a good idea. The advice usually is 30 days, and I think we would have been wise to follow that advice. Aaron, do you have any other thoughts on kind of things to avoid?
I completely underestimated the amount of effort it took to get the actual page together, like the Kickstarter page itself. We spent a lot of time fine tuning the video, and getting all that perfect. And then, thankfully Ilya, pushed to start working on the page earlier. I had no idea that it was going to be such an effort, though, because you got to like really lock down. There's just so much text everywhere. You think about, you have to figure out exactly how to word each of the tiers. Then you've got to think about how to go through the description of the product, and then maybe for this description I need this figure and that figure, and then you actually have to go create those diagrams, and it's just an insane amount of work that I totally underestimated. Don't underestimate the effort on that front.
I mentioned before we started taping to Pete, you're talking about Minority Report, and then Pete started teasing me about quoting a film that was probably 20 years old now or something.
Mike's vision of the future is driven
one reference
driven by the
future.
past, interestingly.
Yeah. So what should be my new reference? I mean, what is the future going to look like for sensor tech?
I think the new, people always reference Iron Man now, like the Iron Man interface where he's got the computer, he's got the 3D things are flying around, and he's like, interacting with it in 3D space and stuff like that, and he's got this crazy control surface. I think that's probably like the newer Minority Report reference, but I totally understand what you're saying with that one.
I will update my references.
But Iron Man does not have a Sensel Morph. There's no
he will do
force touch technology in his interface.
Iron Man 4.
Yeah, actually, that's actually what's really fascinating is that I think a lot of people are enamored by these 3D interfaces where things are floating around and people are moving their hands around. But for 99% of the work that people do, they don't want to be holding their hands up. Like people, when they hold their hands up in free space, that's comfortable for about 45 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then after that, you're exhausted and you want to just reach out and rest your hands on something. And I think that's like a testament to why the keyboard still exists and why that tactile interface isn't going away, because people just need to rest their hands and like feel something, right, to like ground them. So yeah, that's an interesting one, because people, I think that's gonna be interesting to see how that turns out in the future.
Yeah, I think you guys you're onto something with this kind of level of tactility, if that's a word.
I don't think that's a word.
It is a word. I saw it in the video earlier on, right?
Is it a word?
It's a word.
I'm not sure Sensel is a word, even though I like Ilya's attempt at putting that in a sentence.
Put Sensel and tactility in a sentence.
I'm sure if you look at our website, there's probably that sentence somewhere.
Oh, good. Yeah.
We will. So look, we always ask our guests to name another campaign that we can all go and have a look at.
Something that was inspiring.
Yeah. Do you guys have another campaign in mind that you could tell us about?
A guest pick.
Well, one campaign that I'm waiting for them to ship the product to me is a half bike. I don't know if you guys have seen that one.
What's it called?
It's called the half bike.
Half bike.
You should get a full bike.
Is that like a unicycle, right?
It's like a bicycle that you don't sit on. You kind of stand on it, and you almost like slalom as you're riding it. It's pretty cool.
I have not seen that.
So I backed those guys a while back, and hoping that they ship soon. And then one other one that I'm pretty excited about is actually another StartX company, and their campaign is still live right now, and it's called Ario. Mm-hmm. And it's this really cool lamp that actually kind of simulates the lighting, kind of simulates like the sun rising in the morning and setting in the evening. So it helps you to, wake up better in the morning and go to sleep easier.
Yeah, I'm into stuff like that.
And for those of us who don't spend a lot of time outside during the day, it's pretty cool idea.
Yeah.
Like a reminder of the sun.
Sounds good for crowdfunders.
Yeah, exactly.
So listen, before we go, can each of you leave us with some words of wisdom? Is there a quote that inspires you or something that's on your office wall? Any words to live by?
Aaron, I think this one is yours.
Yeah. I always tell myself, just like do better. And so like that's something that, it's kind of, when I find myself, cutting corners and stuff, and like, cause I'm kind of the opinion, that I like to just make things work. And then once things kind of work, I like to mark them done, and then kind of ship them. Thankfully, Ilya is not that way. And so Ilya is much more, he's I'd say a perfectionist, which is great in terms of our dynamic, because I'll kind of rush through something and get it working really fast, and then Ilya will say, hey, let's refine this and make this really perfect. One of the things I'm trying to do is make myself kind of more that way, and so I always tell myself, just like, do better, Aaron. Like if you find yourself like cutting a corner and sloppily putting code together, I just stop and say, just
be more like Ilya.
So you're asking yourself, what would Ilya do?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's sort of caught on in the office. So I think that's kind of become our company slogan internally.
And Ilya, is there anything that Aaron does that you think, yeah, I really, I'd like to be more like Aaron on that?
Well, I love how Aaron, it's kind of like the flip side. I love how Aaron like just jumps in and gets going on stuff, because sometimes I'll tend to like I want to get everything right the first time. So I'll like spend too much time thinking about things and overanalyzing, and then Aaron will just like, let's just try this and then see what happens. So it's a good mix between the two of us.
Yeah, sounds like a good
yeah.
team.
Ilya does things once, and I usually do things 2 or 3 times. So on average, we're pretty good.
Well, look, it's been a pleasure talking to you both. I appreciate your time, both of you sharing your story and your crowdfunding tips.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. This was really great.
This was great. And where can people go online to find out more about Sensel and the Sensel Morph?
Yeah, you can go to sensel.com, to check out our website. You can also search for Sensel on the Kickstarter page to see our campaign and learn more about what we did there.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, guys.
Awesome.
Great,
Thanks so much for your time.
So you've been listening to Crowd Scene, the podcast about successful crowdfunding campaigns and the people who make them happen. Our thanks to our guests Ilya and Aaron for their time and their insights in this episode. To find out more about Sensel, visit them on the web at sensel.com. Coming up on the next episode of Crowd Scene, we meet 2 friends who were inspired to help address the problem of malnutrition in developing countries. And to do that, they came up with an ingenious and unusual plan that involves a large amount of peanut butter. They were a lot of fun to talk to, so be sure and subscribe to the Crowd Scene podcast on iTunes or on any podcast app. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Crowd Scene Show, and you can write to us at hello@crowdsceneshow.com. Lastly, our thanks to Kim Bookbinder for her theme music. Do check out Kim's work at kimbookbinder.com. And we're also grateful to our friend Jim Fowler and his expert ears. Please check out Jim at jimfowlermusic.com. So until next time, thanks for listening.
Crowd scene, gonna kick it with Pete and Mike. Crowd scene, interviews behind the hype. Crowd scene, crowd scene.
Now that's what I call epic.